Okay. Oh, I have to do okay. Whoops. Okay. So let's start with a prayer, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about my book. Okay. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, friend and guide, we humbly bow before you all. We thank you for your blessings, and most of all, the blessing of being able to offer ourselves into your light, into your love, and into your divine joy. Guide our lives, guide our choices, guide us home to thee. Om, peace. Amen. You know, even though I say my book, it's really not my book. I'll just tell you a little bit about, because one of the main questions I got asked when the book was coming out was, how long did it take you to write it? I said, well, that's a little complicated, but let me quickly go through that. Uh, probably, not probably, I'd say 1998. My Pranaba and I had just been assigned to go to Portland as spiritual directors. And we had been there before 1995, 94, 95. So we were going back to be spiritual directors. And when we were there, I just felt, how can I possibly have lived this life and not write about it? Not, in other words, not tell other people about it, because it's been such an incredible life. And the whole reason that it's been so incredible is Swami Kriyananda, because he was always a channel for Yogananda. And so just, I felt really compelled to write about it, but I wasn't in the place. I'm not a writer by profession, and that's not been an easy thing for me to do, but I thought, I've got to do something. So 1998, I thought, okay, if you don't do something now, you're going to start to forget what's happened, because that was like 26 years into my being with Ananda. I came to Ananda village. It wasn't even a village. I came to Ananda here in 1972. I moved here the year before I visited. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, it's now or never to do something. So I got out my little tape recorder and I recorded 3 cassette tapes. Each of them were 90 minutes long. And I just recorded everything I could remember on those tapes. And I thought, okay, now at least I've got something to work with. Not writing diaries, and I did a little bit of that in the beginning years, but that doesn't capture the spirit of how you live, what we've done with Ananda. And so I did that. And then after that, they sat, because we were spiritual directors. We traveled to Italy to visit Swami in 1999. 2000 came, Y2K didn't happen. 2001 happened, 9/11. I mean, all these things were happening. And so we were full on being spiritual directors. So I couldn't really do anything, but I thought, at least I've captured something there. When we came back here to the village in 2004, the very beginning of 2004, those tapes just sat. And I'd look at them every so often and think, oh, you're still there, aren't you? And so at some point, I knew I would have to do something about them. And it's a lot of work to transcribe tapes, I'll just say that. So at any rate, at a certain point, I thought, okay, time to do it. So I just sat down and I just went through 270 minutes of recordings. And so I got that, and then I had a body of work, something on the computer, in Word as documents. And so then after that, that also sat for a while, because again, I was founding the Janaka Foundation, estate planning. I didn't know about that. I had to learn about that. But then, as the years went by, I thought, okay, well, now we need to start working on the writings that you have. And so I did that. And each time I would go into seclusion, that would be my project. Not the entire seclusion, but that would be a major focus. And so that went on for a number of years, and various things happened, but that was happening. And then at a certain point, I remember asking Nayaswami Anandi, when she was still with us, I said, Anandi, I need somebody to edit this. I don't know what I'm doing. And she suggested a couple of people. I tried one, and that worked a little bit. But again, I wasn't able to be consistent with my energy with doing this as a project. And so finally, I thought, I turned 75, and I thought, you know what? It's now or never. This is it. It has to happen, because otherwise I won't have the energy to do it. And so I asked Prakash if he would help, and he said, I'd be happy to help. Well, now, the reason I had hesitated ever asking Prakash is because he doesn't have email, he doesn't have a computer, he doesn't deal with any kind of technology. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll see. But he is consistent, and he was an English professor in his previous, before he came to Ananda. He's very good at editing, and many people have used him. Anandi had suggested him. Bharat had used him to edit a number of his books. So I said, okay, well, let's do this. So how it works is this, without a computer for the other person. So I would print out a chunk of the book. I would put it in an envelope, put it in his mailbox here at the village, and he would take it. On the weekend only, he would edit like crazy, and he did a lot editing. And then he would put it back in my box when he was done. I would take that out, and I would start to edit the manuscript that I already had. So I'd put his edits, enter them in. We went back and forth through the entire manuscript 3 times, and it took almost a year. But we went back and forth, and it was very, very helpful. Prakash also lived during a lot of the things I'm talking about in the book. So he was able to keep it my voice. Although he edited it a lot, it still sounded like me, which was very important. Otherwise, why would I write it? It had to sound like me. So we did that. And then at the end of that, I'll just say, whenever you write something, and for me, writing about my own life, I thought, I'm not sure this is worth anything, really. I mean, that's just what I felt. I was too close to it. And I would say that to Prakash periodically. I said, I'm not sure about this, but let's finish it, And he said, no, it's good. It's good. So we'd keep going. And so we got to the end of that, and I said, so are we done editing? And he said, well, with editing, you can go on forever. But he said, I think we're done. I think we're done. And so at that point, I thought, okay, moment in time, no matter how I'm feeling about it, let me print the entire thing out. And I gave it to Jyotish and Devi, because I thought, I need to know, is it really worth anything? Should I continue? And so I think Devi mainly read it. Jyotish probably looked at it as well. But she came back and she said, no, it's good. And so I thought, okay, next step, crystal clarity. So I went to Crystal Clarity, this was in the fall. So 2022 to 2023 was the year of editing. And then in the fall of 2023, so a year ago, I connected with Dharmadevi and Narayan, Crystal Clarity. We arranged, I said, I think this is going to be a book, so let's talk in that way. And so I did it in the way that they publish it. I don't have any rights to the book. They publish it, they print it, all of that. And so there was that. And then the next project was the photos, because I also said to them, the books that they've been putting out are usually smaller with really no photos, not many photos at all. So just 4-color cover, inside black and white, very inexpensive to print. I said, no, you know what? Whole thing has to be 4-color because you can't have photos that aren't 4-color. Luckily, people would make comments to me along this journey. Swami Maria said, oh, somebody printed this book and they did all their photos in black and white. And it was so disappointing because it was really nice to see them in 4-color. So anyway, that happened. And I just thought, fine, we'll just do that. And then the next project was working on the photos. And, each step of the way, you don't know when you haven't done a book before what hard work it is each step. Anyway, so then the deal with the photos was that I had collected them all, but they have to be of a high enough quality to print. So I hired Barbara Bingham. We went through the photos. That took another couple of months to really work on those, get them right. I had captions I wanted them placed in a certain way, only a few in that way. Anyway, so that all happened. And then it went to print. So that's the story of it. But all along, I just felt, why am I doing this? Because how could I not thank Swami? I mean, he's given me this life that's just unbelievable, really unbelievable. And so it's about gratitude to Swami. So my book, no, it's Swami's book because it's about him. It's about his influence in my life with Ananda and the story of building Ananda. When Nayaswami Uma was here from Assisi earlier on this year, a few months ago, I was talking with her. She read some of the manuscript, and I said, we were talking about it, and she said, you know what? Think about it. How do you bring something out of nothing? Because that's pretty much what we started with. It was Swami, who was not nothing, for sure. He had all the magnetism, the understanding, the energy, the consciousness, all of that. But he was a one-man show in the beginning. And not that other people weren't around, but we didn't know what we were doing. And we started with a beautiful piece of land that for about 10 years going, every year that we had Rajasi Day, our annual work day, we did tamas control. In other words, we had to clean the land for about 10 years. It had been used in various ways and just was kind of junky and not nice. And so we'd do that. But all along, there was the idea that we were, from the beginning, when my beginning, 1972, was that here we are, and Swami always used the word we, not I, we're building Ananda, and we are manifesting Master's mission here. That's what the deal is with Ananda. And so there was always his vision, and I do this because it was a big vision, but he didn't always share the big part. He would just share as much as he felt we could deal with, we could really benefit from. And one thing that he said early on, which was very sweet, really, is he said, I saw all of you, each of you, when you came, and I accepted you as you were. And I thought, yeah, and if you look at a picture of us in the 1970s or whatever, that says a lot about what Swami was. He was an excellent leader who worked by energy and consciousness, but mainly in the beginning, what I felt, energy. And so he would just have us doing a lot of things. We had to clean the land. We had to manifest various things. In the first less than a year that I was at Ananda, I got a job making flower jewelry with Benai. That was a little, that's what I did over that winter, 72, 73. Then also in the spring of 73, I started Master's Market. It was just a store when I started. It was a nice idea. Mainly, Swami kept saying to us,
if you see something that needs doing, do it. He said, it's a community. He said, I can't do it all. I can't make a community. You all have to do it. And so I looked around and saw that there wasn't any way to buy food. We're 15 miles from a small town. And in North San Juan, 5 miles away, yeah, there were 3 bars, one Toki's restaurant that sold one vegetarian dish, yakisoba, and that was about it. Otherwise, it was junk food. And so I thought, well, we've just got to do something. I said, I didn't have any money. I talk about this in the book, so I'm going to share with you some of the things I talk about. So I didn't have any money to do that, but I didn't think of that as being an obstacle because of Swami's energy. He said, just do it. It's about energy. You'll attract what you need if you just start it. And so I did. So I thought, well, at least if nothing else, for a market, I commandeered one of the downstairs rooms in the farmhouse where the market is today. I got that room and said, okay, at lunchtime, I will open up and I will sell bananas, apples, oranges, and dates, and maybe some nuts or something, just something. I thought, I can afford that. I'll just buy it myself and sell it, just to get the energy going. And I watched how Swami was manifesting Ananda in that same way. So I was imitating him in just watching and thinking, okay, this is how he's doing things. Well, let me do that. And so with the market, I did that. And it's interesting because Swami would say, energy, if you get it going in a flow, it creates a magnetic field and then it attracts other energy to it. These are science, just statistics. So with us, if we get energy going on a project and it becomes focused, then it creates a magnetic field and you draw other things. So within, I'd say, a few months, a young man came. He was brand new to Ananda. He loved the idea of a market, and he had $500 that he just gave to do the market. This is 1973. $500 was like, I don't know, 5,000 or something today. It was a lot of money. And he had the energy too. And so we got another room. Right at that point, things were originally, when I came, the whole downstairs of the farmhouse where the market is today, that was the print shop. There were printing presses in the big room. There were people were giving the lessons out. The lessons were printed every 2 weeks. They were distributed or mailed out. So as they moved up to the newly built publications building up on the hill, which was like a miracle of God that we had that building. Beautiful, soaring, dry, warm, no, had electricity, no running water, no bathrooms, no central heating, but it was dry and it was warm and it was beautiful. Anyway, but the whole printing press was in the back of that building, and so that was moving out. So as that moved out, I went in because dry covered spaces in those early years were very few. So each time one room would get vacated, I said, market, market. So we put up shelves and, filled things. Anyway, but it evolved in that way. And it evolved fairly quickly with the help of Sanjaya, which was the name of this young guy who had come and given money as well. So anyway, the market happened. Also that same spring, the fellow that I came with and we built a house. This is all I came in July of 1972. By July and August of 1973, job, market, and house happened. I mean, it's like, how did that even happen? But we wanted a better place to live than the little 15-foot trailer that we had come in at the meditation retreat. And by the way, we just to give you a flavor of those days, we had visited in 71, but in 72, and there were 2 telephones at the farm. One was in the publications building, and there was a payphone down where the market is in the farmhouse. That was it. The meditation retreat, I don't know how people ever found their way to the meditation retreat in the dark on a gravel road of 6 miles. And, just anyway. But when we first arrived, we just came unannounced. We arrived and we told Satya that we were there to stay, and he thought it was a good idea. Yay! But things happened more like that then because of the lack of communication ability. And but Swami was very good with all of that. He was very centered. And another story that I tell is about, so we arrived middle of July, and in the beginning part of, I think, September and end of August, something like that, there was finally a membership meeting. And so we went to it thinking, wow, I mean, we've only been here a couple of months, and all we arrived and said we want to live here. What are they going to say to us? And on the membership committee was Swami, Jyotish, Seva, Lakshmi, and probably a few other people that I don't quite remember. And so we were nervous, about what's going to happen. And we walked in, and they were all laughing and just relaxed. And Swami said, "Oh, here they are. So what do you all think? Should we let them in?" And they all said, "Yeah, I guess so." And so Swami turned to us and he said, "Well, I guess you're in." But being in also meant a commitment on our part that they had, that we would pay a membership fee of $1,500 as a couple to Ananda. And all that money that was collected went to paying off the land payments. The land was in process of being bought. So anyway, so we did that, and there we were. And then we also had to build our own house. Money. And so the house, but again, in the 70s, that was a very interesting financial situation. So the house cost, I would say, about $2,500. That's it. So, again, financial realities are so completely different today, 50 years later, of course. But anyway, but I'm saying this because it gives you a feel of how Swami dealt with people and how relaxed he was. He could see, he knew what people were like. He had worked with people when he was a monk in SRF. He'd been a main teacher and been to Australia and around the world, actually, in Europe as well. So he just looked at people and he gave people a chance, everybody. Even if he didn't know us well, he could tell if there was potential there and our intention. And so anyway, so that started off our journey there. And after that, I worked at the market with Master's Market. We always called it Master's Market. Yay! And at the same time that I was starting Master's Market, I think it was just the fall before, in 1972, Swami asked Nitai to start the school. Because Nitai came as a trained, I think he had a master's in education. People were coming with credentials, but also wanting to know God and wanting to help manifest Master's mission. And so part of it, a big part, was education. And so Swami had asked Nitai to do that. And Nitai went to him and said, "So what guidance can you give me?" And he said, "Just look at what he did in Ranchi and then meditate on it." And keep in touch. He didn't. Swami's main concerns in those early years were the meditation retreat, the monastery at Ayodhya. These were energy centers that grounded energy. The farm was in motion, but as part of the farm, meaning the village that we see today, was publications, which was in the building, publications building, that he always gave energy to.
and also the school. There was a school building that was being built. And so Nitai started that, but he started in a little shack down around the farmhouse. So he and I were good friends. We worked together in the flower jewelry business. He did the school part-time. We all worked together. And in the first year, once the market was established, the market did a fundraiser for the school by showing a film on the lawn. We hardly had a lawn. I wouldn't even call it a lawn. It was dirt. Anyway, people came. We showed a movie to raise money for the school for a projector, and we did. We sold, enjoyment, things from the market for people to eat and while they watch the movie. And so we raised money for the projector. That was all within the first year or so. So anyway, but it was a great adventure. And that's why I say spiritual adventure and discipleship, because at the same time, it wasn't just, oh, well, I'm just on this adventure, I'm making it up as I go. No, it was attuning constantly to Swami Kriyananda. What was his vision? How could I help that happen? And so it was always with that in mind. For me, I knew that from the beginning. I could feel that. I thought the most important things I have to do are to attune to Swami and his consciousness, his energy, go to everything he does, everything. Sunday service, a tea, a satsang, whatever. I go to that. And so I could feel his energy, what he was talking about, and absorb that and meditate, Kriya Yoga. Yeah, those two things, vital, very vital. So if you ever start a community in Australia, I'm telling you, this is the way. You have to, and you have to be relaxed enough, whatever the leadership is, it needs to be relaxed enough to let people come. You hold out the highest. This is what we, as Swami would say, this is what we do at Ananda. We meditate twice a day, Kriya Yoga. He knew not everybody did that, but he would say that to keep that energy high and to say, this is where you should be headed toward. So anyway, that's very, very, very important. I can continue talking, but I also want to know if I'm covering things that are relevant to you. Is this okay so far?
It's amazing.
Okay, I'll tell about some stories because spiritual adventure. Let me tell
Yes.
some spiritual adventure stories. Okay, so that was the very beginning. And so I did the market 1973 through 1976. And it came to a halt for me. Well, I was kind of ready to 3 years of doing a thing like that. It was good. But also in 1976, we had this amazing event. We had a fire in June, and it burned down all of the homes, every single home at the farm, not the meditation retreat, not the Ayodhya, the monastery, none of the main buildings, the publications building, the schoolhouse on the hill. I don't know how it missed that, but all the main buildings downtown, even though most of them were old and decrepit, they were buildings that we could use. None of those burned, but all the homes burned. And when we looked at the map afterwards, it was like, wow, this was our fire, because it only burned a couple of people around the edge, but it did not burn the entire area, which it could easily have done. It was a dry, like it is now, dry, windy June 28th, something like that, 22nd, and it just came poof, and the wind just drove it, and it just burned everything. So after that, it was like, whoa, now what do we do? And because of the spirit of Swami Kriyananda, I just felt like, oh, okay, well, the community burned down. That's a fact. That morning, I had walked to work, to the market
from Ayodhya. It was about a mile walk, and it was beautiful. Spring, green, wildflowers, just wonderful. By the afternoon, within 90 minutes, gone. Just gone. 90 minutes. All ashes, smoldering, horrible to look at. But I just thought, well, it's all a dream anyway. So this is the reality. So what do we do now? Well, in my mind, I thought we need money. And we didn't have any insurance, zero, no insurance. And Swami Kriyananda said, because we could have, it was caused by a spark arrestor that was faulty on a county truck. So we could have sued the county for millions of dollars. And, but you know what happens if you do that? Your neighbors pay for it, taxes. And so Swami Kriyananda said, no, we're not going to sue. And he said for a long time, he thought that they were waiting for the other shoe to drop and him saying, no, we'll sue after all. But we didn't. And he said, no, we can't do that. We can't take our bad luck out on our neighbors. And so we didn't ever sue. So anyway, we were in need, desperate need of money, and we got help from spiritual groups who came and helped us rebuild. Not too long after that, I think the next year, we started with a few domes and things like that. We cleared all the land, sold timber, all of that. But I went off and tried to make money. Kirtani and I and a group, Bharat, did some things up in the valley and at the rice dryers. We brought home a little bit of money, but it was more about the energy. But at that point, I thought, I'm done with the market. Nirmala and Vasudeva, you take over the market, and I'm moving on now. And when I came back, I heard that Swami said, tell Parvati not to do anything else. I want her working at publications. And publications was like it was the nerve, it was the outreach center. It was the printing presses. It was whatever was going to happen was going to happen from that building. So I was very happy with that, happy to be working more directly for Swami. Anyway, so that happened. But then here's the big deal. 3 events happened at one time. 1976, June, the fire. Now, when the fire happened, Swami Kriyananda was in Hawaii finishing writing the path. He had to go away because it was too hard at Ananda to do it. Always getting pulled, asked about things. So he went there. He was deep in focus and really finishing writing the path. And so he called, but nobody answered. So he called the payphone at the farm, and it was ringing, and some woman walked by, heard it ringing, picked it up, and told him what happened. And because he said he had felt unease, heaviness in his heart. That's why he was trying to call. And anyway, so he found out about it, all of that. But those 2 things were happening at the same time, the fire and then finishing the path. So Swami came back. We had a meeting, talked about things, got people settled. People lived in the barn, in the welcome center, in his dome. People lived everywhere. In the North San Juan trailer park, eventually, everywhere. So anyway, we got people settled. Probably 25% of the residents at that time left. Yeah, it wasn't, you had to be very committed to move through this time, and they weren't. That had been a problem at the farm. There were people that they had their own ideas about community. They tried to do other things. It just cleared that out. And so anyway, but Swami went immediately back to Hawaii after that meeting and finished writing the path. And so then the next year, that was 76. The next year, 1977, it was going to be published. He finished all the editing. He finished the photos. It was ready to be packaged up and finalized and sent off to the printer by about April of 77. But he also announced that when he was done, he was going to take a 7-month leave of absence. He was going to go to Europe and India, go into seclusion. It was a major turning point in his life. And he was taking with him Seva and Vijay Gerard, who isn't living here. He's up outside of Seattle, but at any rate, he's still connected to Ananda. At any rate, so this all was announced in the fall of 1976. So at one point I went to Asha's trailer and I said, so Asha, Seva's going, but she's the one that does all the finances. I mean, all the finances for all of Ananda at that time. And I said, so who will do that while she's gone for 7 months? I mean, wow. And Asha just very impersonally said, oh, well, we were thinking you could do that. And I just thought, oh my God, you've got to be joking. I mean, literally, and I say this in the book, I laughed hysterically because I didn't know anything about bookkeeping. I've just thought this is beyond what I'm capable of. But I looked around, is there anybody better that can do this? And I thought, well, they're asking me. So I thought, okay, I'll say yes. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how it will happen, but I said yes. And so initially it was that Swami was planning on leaving about February. And so that would have given me a month or two training with Seva. And I thought, oh, no, that can't happen. Luckily it didn't. It took him several months more to finalize the editing, the photos, all of that. But at any rate, he left and Seva went with him. Vijay Gerard went with him and others. And I stepped into Seva's desk. I had 7 checkbooks in a drawer. That was Ananda. And then I had to do these reports, which I had no idea what a balance sheet was about and all of that. So I just thought, I think when Seva and I trained, we laughed half the time. And I thought the laughing probably helped me just to relax so I could then gain the other half of the time what to do, because I really didn't know. But I put everything I had into it. And when she left, I thought, okay, it'll be what it'll be. It's only 7 months. I mean, I'll do my best. And what I did was I thought, okay, Divine Mother, Master, Swami, we're doing this together. It has to be. And I thought the balance sheet to me was spiritual, because in a balance sheet, you enter in all these things out here and here, and they have to come out to 0. They have to balance each other out to 0. And I thought, shunya, that's 0. There was a monk at the time who would visit periodically, and his name was Shunyabai. It was Brother 0. And I just thought, I'll remember that. That's so whenever it would balance, I would think, yay. Anyway, that was my first big adventure in that way, where you're being asked to do something really beyond what's reasonable. The reasoning mind goes, oh my God, you can't do that. But the other part says, and Swami again was saying this to us all along, you can do anything. You can learn anything. You can do it. And so I thought, okay, let me test it out. I can do it. And it was fine. Wasn't perfect by any means, but it was accomplished. After that, the next spiritual adventure that I had was going to Australia with Swami in 1980. And I was his assistant. Remember, in those days, even though I went to everything, I was right with Swami, I wasn't personally with Swami. I didn't personally help him pack and, all in a more personal way. I was right with him in what the ideas were, but I hadn't spent that kind of time with him. And so Australia was all about that. And just me being his assistant, whatever needed to happen. Luckily, there were two other people that traveled with us. One of them was very knowledgeable and really helped tremendously with the travel plans, because that I really had no idea what to do about. But with Swami, I was right with him. So if he needed something, I got it. If he needed a massage, I did it. If he needed whatever, I made it happen. So anyway, that was that, but it was testing. Swami was, when I first came to Ananda, I just thought, because people would have different opinions about Swami Kriyananda, and oh, well, he's got a lot of ego, or doesn't, or he's very spiritual, whatever. And I thought, no, I see what he has. He has more energy than many people have ever experienced in their entire lives. And it was non-stop energy, creativity, ideas. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this, just constant. And if you wanted to grow spiritually, I mean, not that any of us could keep up with all of that, but you just tried to get in that flow and help and keep it going. So anyway, at least my part of it, my part for years, several years, was the market. And I did that, Anyway, so, but Australia was being with Swami not all the time. And it was it was testing, but it was also wonderful because I got to see how he related to people, and just his respect for people, his kindness, his always with energy there for people. Never, oh, well, I can't do it because no, always right there, just giving to people. So that was really, really wonderful to absorb and be part of and understand the tapasya. Also, tapasya meaning the well, I don't know, what do you say about tapasya? Do you know what it means? Means that the hardships, that you go through, traveling as Swami did and being with people. He was alone. I mean, I was there, but I couldn't step in for him. And so he was alone as a teacher, and had to take the full responsibility. People approaching him in various ways. I remember one time during that Australia trip that we were somewhere maybe around Brisbane or a little north. Anyway, Swami was giving a talk, and there were a lot of people there, maybe 50 to 100. I stood in the back so I could see what was going on and if anything was needed, if he needed anything. And at one point, I forget what he was talking about, but there was a woman dressed all in white. And she was standing in the back next to me. And then she started slowly walking step by step toward the front of the room. And I thought, well, should I do something? I don't have a problem doing something, but should I, And so I waited and I watched Swami, and he just ignored her. She was trying to take his attention and really wanted to talk to him. And it was totally inappropriate in that setting. He was talking to a whole big group of people, and she was trying to draw attention away to herself. And so he just ignored her. He just kept talking, and he just didn't even look at her. And she finally backed off. I didn't have to intervene for him. So anyway, but a spiritual teacher, you attract people of all kinds, and some of them are very valid, but inappropriate. There's all kinds of stuff that happens when you're in the public like that. And so that was one of the more major just events, watching him do that. after Australia, when we got back to San Francisco, and Swami did, by the way, Master Yogananda loved opals. They reminded him of the astral world and the colors and all of that. And so when we were in Australia, one of the first stops we did in Sydney was to a jewelry store, because Swami wanted to check out opals and see what the prices were and all that. And so we went to a jewelry store, and this woman was the owner of the store, and they were talking about gems and Swami mentioned that he had the Navaratna, and he rolled up his sleeve and showed it to her. And she just went, oh my God, because she knew how much that was worth. 2-carat stones, diamond, pearl, yellow sapphire, blue sapphire. I mean, you just name all of them. It was probably worth $50,000 in that year. You know, they're just tremendously worth. Anyway, she freaked out. Swami wasn't concerned about it at all. In other words, what are you doing wearing that thing? But that was fun. But we did bring back opals, and they were he wanted to share them. He did it as a fundraiser to draw money for, I think, the path and whatever else was happening at that time. But we brought back a whole bag full of opals from Australia. Yeah, but when we got back, we were in San Francisco at Ananda House in Pacific Heights, 45-room mansion that Jyotish and Devi were heading up as an ashram in San Francisco. And Swami, we were having breakfast in the big dining room overlooking, by the way, the Golden Gate Bridge, Angel Island, Alcatraz, just beautiful view of the bay, Sausalito across the bay. And he turned to me and he said, oh, maybe Parvati would like to move down to Atherton and help start the ashram there. And we had just bought East West Bookstore down there. And I just froze. I just thought, I didn't say anything. I thought, I am not ready for this. So I just didn't say anything. So that moment in time passed. But interestingly enough, and again, to remember, he was sowing a seed, because I thought, I'm not yet ready. I knew that something like that was coming my way, because Ananda was just expanding in that time, centers that became communities and things like that. And so the seed was planted. I didn't take that particular seed at that time, but the next year, a year later, he asked me again. I got a phone call. I'd been working with Seva on finances for a couple of years, and I thought, I'm really done with that. I need to transition into doing something else, but I didn't know what that would be. And I liked doing what I was asked to do, especially by Swami, naturally. So anyway, in September, I get a phone call, and it's Purushottama, who was down at Ananda House in San Francisco with Swami, Jyotish, and Devi, and they had all been talking. And so Purushottama said, so Swami's wondering if you would like to move down to San Francisco and help run the center down here. And I was like, okay, yes, I'll do it. It was a different energy, different time. I was different. And so a few months later, I moved. And again, these are stories in the book, but a few months later, I moved I was living at Ayodhya, meaning the monastery. The women lived separately and the men down the hill by Swami's dome. But I was living in a bus, no running water, no electricity, and outhouses. And I moved from that to a 45-room mansion, 4.5 stories high, 9 bathrooms in Pacific Heights, one of the most exclusive areas of San Francisco. And in addition, Jyotish and Devi had opened a center out in the Fillmore district. No, Fillmore, Richmond district. Anyway, and I was supposed to go there and be part of, not be part of it, be in charge of it, along with two other people. So it wasn't just me, but it was like when that particular timing happened and that request from Swami came, I thought, Divine Mother, it's now or never, and I feel fine about this. I had never done anything like that. I had given maybe one or two classes over the years. I had given one or two Sunday services, and now I was going to be on with Ram and Diana, who also came, doing every other Sunday service and running the center. And this was the kicker. This is really, but this was Ananda at the time. So Jyotish and Devi, they had been there 2.5 or 3 years, I think 2.5 years. They had a small son, Kalidasa. They were done, and they had done a beautiful job with people, setting things up, the energy in the house, getting people understanding how to live in an ashram house, many of them new to the spiritual path. Just wonderful energy there. But they were done. They were ready to go back to the village. And so, so I had a couple of months. I had November, December, and January with them. Ram and Diana had 1 month with them. And Jyotish every so often would say, I think it would be really good if you all started a yoga teacher training course here in San Francisco. And Ram and I, who were more teachers, Diana was very new at that point, we would just look at each other and smile and think, yeah, come on. I mean, we're just running this whole house and all the people. We needed about 31 people to make it financially viable. We had the center with some classes. And he said, and finally, after suggesting this gently several times before they left, he said, if you don't start a yoga teacher training course now, you won't have the money to pay the rent on the center. So it was like, oh, Jyotish, how could you? But Ram and I did it. We got it together. And in the spring, I think, so Jyotish and Devi left at the end of either January, beginning of February. By, I think it was March or April, we started a yoga teacher training course. And we had a good turnout. We had maybe 10 to 15 people. We had never done anything like that. We knew a little bit about teaching, a little bit about the postures. Ram was more conversant with that, and so we just used the 14 steps, and we trained. And Prakash helped us. He had done a yoga teacher training course in some of the other centers like Sacramento. And at the time, yoga teacher training courses were not many in San Francisco. Ours may have been one of the first because it was a new concept to do that, not at a retreat, but in the city. So we had once a week classes, and then once a month, we met on a Saturday for a workshop. And then we gave, if people completed everything, we gave them a certificate as being an Ananda yoga teacher. Yeah, I mean, it was serious to us. And if they weren't able to complete the classes, then we couldn't give them the certificate. But I never studied so hard in my entire life because we had no experience of doing that, but we did it. And so anyway, those things, they come up and you think, I can do this. If I put my mind to it, I can do that. And again, that was Swami Kriyananda's energy. And I'll just stop my part of this. We're a couple minutes after 5 here by saying, when I first came to Ananda, what I felt, and I mean just visiting, I had just read the autobiography of a yogi a few weeks before, and I visited twice, just for a weekend, an overnight. And my feeling was, this feels like the autobiography, because I could feel it felt the same energy as what Yogananda talked about in the autobiography. His energy is consciousness. And the energy and consciousness of Ananda felt like that to me. And later on, I thought, why did I feel that? I mean, I was brand new to it all, but I thought, but that's how Swami was building Ananda. He was constantly asking Master what to do, how to approach this, what should happen next, how should I treat this situation, constantly drawing. And that's what I felt from that. So it wasn't like I was feeling like I had to choose something. It was, wow, it was happening with Ananda. Yeah, very much. Okay.
This has just been so timely and so helpful. I think we all can relate to the stories that you're sharing, and what a perfect fit for, yeah, just your message. It's just, thank you. These stories are so important. I was taking so many notes, thinking, how can we, capture all that you're sharing and put it in our, our weekly email, and make sure everyone can see this video.
The book has a lot in it.
Yes, and keep sharing about the book
And
as well.
you're welcome to use whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Parvati, we're just thinking, if we can invite you again. I know we're about to get into the busy holidays, but maybe after, this is so helpful to the Sangha here. So we'd love to keep doing this topic.
Yeah.
And I would love to say a big thank you
Yeah.
from our Sangha.
Yes.
I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but the funding that we got for all our tech gear had a big part with Parvati and
the Janaka,
Janaka Foundation, which was a big part
That
of
was that was a further spiritual adventure of mine, learning about estate planning.
Yeah, completely from the ground up. It's pretty amazing.
And the joy that you bring, I just
Yeah.
love the fact that nothing, and it's the title of your book, but nothing that was presented, I mean, obviously you don't go into depth here, which is amazing, about the mental struggle of everything that you're doing. I'm sure for every part that you positively put energy towards, there was that mental, the battle that was constantly saying, oh, I can't believe that there's no way that I could be doing this and that. And, and you're a living proof of attuning to Yogananda Swamiji and
Solutions.
that solution orientated way of Ananda. And it's such a joy to have. And we're so grateful that you're an example.
And, I want to say too, it's not like, oh, that's just completely who I am. You're always living on two levels, because you've got your present reality, and then you've got what you can do, that what's possible, your potential. And Swami Kriyananda held out to us our highest potential. And then he let us, each one of us, aspire to that as we were able to. And he never was negative about people. Oh, well, they really, I mean, yeah, a couple times, but not really. It's more, you're aspiring to perfection. If you never aspire, you never get there. But at the same time, you've got your human personality and the stuff that you have to deal with. So don't be put off by the fact that you're not perfect. Yeah, it's a long distance run, and you have to be willing to just keep moving. That's the other thing that I saw with Swami, is that, oh, that didn't work. A lot of things didn't work. Not all of it worked. Oh, that didn't work. Well, let's move on. Let's try this. So, and not that quickly, but you don't grieve or be bad or pulled down. Oh, this didn't happen. There's a waste of time. And really, you don't have time for that. When you're trying to establish something that's new, that's higher, you don't have time for that. And you would just say, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else, another direction. And that also is very, very important, but keep it moving forward. And yeah, don't be heavy on yourselves.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. So dear souls, there's still a moment of opportunity to write in any questions. Otherwise, Parvati, we could always share a few that come in later, maybe after people have digested. This is really high level and energy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I know for us to reflect on all that you've shared is also a big part of today. And during this sacred week is the 9-day Divine Mother.
Oh.
Raul shared with us that he maybe will type in the
Mhm.
Bhakti asked a good question. She said, how could you share a bit more about some of the time or lessons or experiences in Australia?
Actually one comes to mind that was interesting. And it was about a group, I think they were, from my memory, Tidbinbilla. Is Tidbinbilla a place? What is that? Where is that?
To correct me if
That's
I'm
it.
wrong. I think it's in the south coast.
Anyway, we went to a place that was out in the jungle, I don't know, forest, and it was, I think, west of Brisbane. And the reason we went is that there was a group of people. They invited Swami and so the rest of us, and they were trying to start a community. Yeah, and they had land, and but it was interesting. They were good people. They were more connected with Findhorn than with Ananda as a spiritual path. So that was there, and then, but they were kind of, I don't know, asking for guidance in a way that to me felt beyond where they were at. I don't know how to put it. Transmissions, something like that, but it didn't. I just looked at them and the land and all of that, and I thought, I don't think they're, Ananda has been built on high ideals and common sense. I mean, they had us go out to this land. It was raining. It was muddy. I mean, I don't know, and they were thinking, oh, it's not going to rain. Well, it was raining. I mean, come on. It was raining. So it was just odd because it felt like sincere people, but not grounded. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't remember too much, but just that general feeling of Ananda has not been created on just high hopes. It's been created with a high aspiration. You'd have a high goal, but then you have to come in and deal with the realities that are there. And in fact, I was just listening to a talk of Swami's where he talked about that. And he was talking about a time at Ananda when we were dealing with the county really blocking our growth. And, it went on for a number of years. It was not a good situation. Anyway, he was really trying to do something. And he said, I went out and protested with other people because he said I couldn't do something about it. I had to relate to it on its own level. He said I could sit at home and chant Om, but that wouldn't be doing that. So he said I went out and spoke for it. I went out and did something that was at the same level what was needed at the time. And so you're always working with those energies of just, here we are in this situation. We want to aspire to the highest, but what do we need to do right now? So again, you're working on two different levels. And the only way that happens with a group is that you meditate. You have to meditate. If you don't meditate, then you're just really making it up. Even if you're not good at meditating, you meditate anyway. That's your connection to the gurus. That's your connection to master. At this point, that's your connection also to Swami. And so that allows you to be open in a way that's more intuitive. So you're working with intuition and common sense. They're two different things. And so, but you have to use both. And sometimes it's more just common sense. And sometimes you'll have intuitions that feel more like, if we go in this direction, I think that will help. And so, yeah, but you're experimenting. So you go in that direction and it didn't help. Okay, well, let's move on. You just have to keep fluid with your energy, but know the overall goal and know that each of you is meditating and really trying to live a spiritual life that allows you to attune to that reality that's bigger, that's broader. Yeah.
Wow,
It's a
thank you.
great adventure. Yeah,
So true. We have one more question if you have time.
sure.
It's from Tracy, and the question is, who from Ananda came from 94 to 95? If you happen to know the next group that came.
Next group. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I think there was maybe another visit from people sharing Ananda here in 94. I
Oh,
think
in
that,
Australia.
yes, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I know the people, but I don't know what happened in Australia because I wasn't there. Yeah, so
Thank
it
you.
didn't work.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it just, it's very tricky. It's difficult, not easy. And the people that came had other agendas, the two main people. And so if you have another agenda, and they weren't, Swami came to visit during that time. He came to Australia, and it just, the energy wasn't right. Yeah. Yeah. They weren't really asking for advice. And so it didn't happen. Yeah. They tried. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really part of the history of how things can take shape. And I think Davies talked about it a lot. You see a lot of visionary energy going out from Ananda devotees, but she said, unless you keep asking for guidance and you keep asking, if you're still going in the right direction,
Yeah.
let humility, it's really
Yeah.
important. She
That's
said the
what
projects
Swami,
that succeed,
yeah.
that's different.
And that's what Swami was doing all along with Master.
Mhm.
He was alone in creating Ananda. His caliber, he was 20 years older than me. But in other words, he didn't have guru bhais, but he always was asking Master, always connecting, always open. And he made this comment one time. He said, if you're asking, it can come from different directions. He said, sometimes you can tend to think, oh, well, this person is coming to me. He talked about a woman, and he said she seemed a little foolish, but she had a message for him from Master. And he thought, okay, let me hear it, And he said, I just remained open. And he said, actually, some of what she said was good. Yeah, it really was a message. And so he was very humble in that way, of just, yeah, it's a tightrope, leadership and all of that. It's tricky. But if you're humble and you're willing to make mistakes, I mean, you have to make mistakes if you're creating something, good heavens. Nothing will happen otherwise. So but you draw a core of people who are with you. That's also another thing that Swami at one point in the evolution of Ananda said, if it hadn't been for Seva and Jyotish, Ananda would not have happened. Because in the early years, it was just him with ideas about what to do, but there had to be at least a couple of other people who really understood what he was trying to do. And that was Jyotish and Seva both. And they were right with him. They were making it happen. You don't always agree with everything, but you're vibrationally there. And you understand that there's a vision here trying to come out, and you're trying to attune to that. So Seva and Jyotish, yeah, we wouldn't have Ananda without them. Yeah.
Speaking of,
Okay.
this has been wonderful. I might send you one follow-up question, but thank you so much for your time. We have a lot of people writing in the thank yous, and sometimes we just end by sending out ohms. And
Good idea. Why don't you do that?
okay, so I'll just end the recording.